In today's video, we're back with some updated NHL trade rumors with information coming from NHL Insider Trading on TSN with Pierre LeBrun and Darren Dreger. Today we have updates including on Kyle Turris, Matt Duchene, Jason Zucker, Corey Perry, Dion Phaneuf, and more. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. Welcome back to Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. We got lots of information to cover today from Insider Trading, so I recommend watching this video all the way through. All kinds of great information for stuff we might see coming up shortly here as we enter full swing of the offseason. Now, of course, to kick things off, discussing the future of Anaheim Ducks forward Corey Perry. Now, could they be a mutual parting of ways agreement basically in place between Perry and the Ducks? It certainly looks that way. Corey Perry, of course, has a full no trade clause. Now, of course, Perry is a player that we discussed just a few days ago, taking a look at the top candidates who could be bought out this summer by the respective NHL clubs, and that does remain a possibility. But according to Pierre LeBrun, there is a lot of trade dialogue going on with Corey Perry, and of course the Ducks realize here they are likely going to have to eat a fair bit of that salary and retain a fair bit on that contract to get him moved. Now, of course, where he has a no move, like I said, he's got a lot of control over this, and they're going to try their best to accommodate a trade somewhere that would be desirable for Corey Perry. But as we know, he's 34 years old. He's been declining for quite some time. He still has 2 years on his contract, over $8.5 million. He's certainly not in a position where there's going to be a ton of interest, but for the right price tag, teams might be willing to take this on here and let him kind of ride out his career. Now, one thing that's certainly kind of a little bit disappointing, I think, for Perry and the Ducks would be that he's really close to the 1,000 game mark. He would have hit this already had it not been for a lot of injuries in the past few years. But if he does continue playing here and goes to another organization, he's going to end up playing game number 1,000 in a different uniform. And for a guy who's been with that club for a long time and has been a big part of their kind of recent history here, that's a little bit disappointing to see. But at the same time, from the Ducks perspective, I do completely understand that it is time to move on here, free up a roster spot, try to free up some cap space, and see what they can do here to get younger, faster, and more skilled. So Corey Perry is certainly a player to keep your eyes on and very likely could find himself traded here leading up to the NHL draft. But of course, when the buyout period opens on June 15th, there is a good possibility, if they don't have a trade in place, like we discussed before, that he will end up being bought out and become an unrestricted free agent and can sign a new deal with anybody at all around the NHL. So we'll see, but it does look like Corey Perry's days in Anaheim are coming to an end here in short order. Now, of course, across the way in Los Angeles, the same could be said for a defenseman for the Kings, Dion Phaneuf. Now, of course, Dion was acquired a little while back from the Ottawa Senators. The Senators did retain a portion of his contract when he was traded to LA, but of course, things haven't really worked out for very long there. Now, in the beginning, he did look like he was having somewhat of an impact, kind of got rejuvenated by the trade, but last year, really overall, was not good for Dion at all. There were times when he was even in a healthy scratch later into the year, too. So I do think that they would really like to part ways. Of course, he and Perry are the same age. They each have a couple of years left on their contract. Of course, Dion's around the $7 million mark. So, again, buyouts are a little bit expensive, but I think teams are willing to go down this road if they need to. But, again, they would go down the route of a trade first. Obviously, take a look at retaining some salary or adding some kind of sweetener to the deal here if necessary. But the Kings do want to move on from Dion Phaneuf, get him a fresh start, and free up some space and a roster spot with their club. So as we mentioned the other day, both are very prime candidates to be bought out. But as these insiders are reporting, there is a lot of trade talk going on with other clubs trying to get them moved along here and get them off the books and onto another roster. But according to these NHL insiders, there is a lot of trade talk going on, trying, of course, first to make a trade before they go down the buyout route, which is fully expected here. Now, of course, they did touch on the fact as well, something that we were talking about here again yesterday, and that's the Canucks and Oilers possibly hooking up on bad contracts with Louis Eriksson and Milan Lucic. Now, yesterday we talked about the possibility of maybe a three-way deal between the Flames, Oilers, and Canucks as well. But we didn't have any sources indicating that was being discussed. That was just information being discussed on a radio hit, which I found interesting and wanted to discuss as a channel here. But obviously, there apparently, according to Darren Dreger, there is some interest on both sides of the Oilers and the Canucks to maybe make this deal happen. So they are interested. I mean, many people had commented on the videos where we discussed Eriksson and Lucic saying that it's never going to happen or that they don't want it to happen or whatever. And you know what? I kind of understand your feelings from one side or the other, depending on what team you cheer for. But I know, according to Dreger, there is interest. The only sticking point here is that Lucic's contract has an extra year on it. So he feels that for that deal to take place, the Oilers are going to have to add a sweetener to it. So it's going to have to be Lucic plus something else that make the Canucks interested enough to move him along and to trade Louis Eriksson. But of course, we also saw the fact that Jim Benning was likely going to be trying to talk to Louis Eriksson here in the near future, discuss the comments he made about the team and his relationship with Travis Green. And of course, Green was possibly going to be part of that discussion as well. So it wouldn't be completely shocking to see either of them be moved for the right price. Keep in mind, new Edmonton Oilers coach Dave Tippett was a coach for Louis Eriksson for 3 years in Dallas, where he had some of his best years, and that very well could play a role in the influence of possibly bringing him into the Edmonton Oilers. And obviously, Lucic going to Vancouver, his hometown team, as it makes a lot of sense to kind of be that extra guy in the forward group who can provide that muscle and that intimidation factor, so that a lot of their young forwards and even young D like Quinn Hughes, now that he's going to be playing full-time, certainly will kind of deter other players from taking runs at them and kind of be that bodyguard type of player for that club. Certainly something they could use. Obviously, the Canucks brought in guys like Roussel last year, and really we didn't really see a whole lot of a response many times when some of their guys got run. So I can see Lucic being a good fit there for that purpose at least. And there's many times you see bad contract for bad contract swaps. So personally, I do think there is something to that. Not for sure by any means that it's going to happen, but there is some interest, and if the Oilers are willing to pony up a little extra into the deal, I do see it being a good possibility that it actually does take place. Now, there was some talk around free agent center Matt Duchene and where he's going to end up this coming summer. There is still belief that he is still talking to the Columbus Blue Jackets and that it's not a completely being ruled out here that he could return to Columbus, although many feel that they're not the favorite to land him. But according to Darren Dreger, there are many other teams in the mix. And one team that came up as a bit of a surprise, who apparently is making Matt Duchene their primary target as free agent this year, is the Arizona Coyotes. Now, he indicated with the ownership change looming here in Arizona that they're likely going to have an infusion of cash and be able to spend closer to the salary cap, which right now they don't have a ton of space, but they have been rumored to be making some other trades which could kind of change things here a little bit as well. But he said the Coyotes have made Duchene their primary free agent target. Now, they're not a team that's been mentioned in connection to this player at all. I mean, we've heard Nashville, we've heard Montreal and Ottawa possibly before. We've even heard, of course, returning to Columbus, or even Buffalo, I think, has been mentioned briefly before, but I'm not sure they were linked all that closely. But many believe that Nashville was the favorite, with some of these other clubs like Columbus, Montreal, Ottawa, whatever, kind of being, in the secondary, second tier market, I guess, that would kind of have a shot at landing him. But hearing Arizona's name from Dreger was certainly found to be quite surprising. I'm not really sure that Duchene would be all that interested in going there, but I guess we really can't rule that out. We don't know exactly what his personal feelings would be on that. They also mentioned the fact about Jeff Skinner's new contract with Buffalo, that's something that Duchene's going to be looking at. It was rumored before that he might be looking at an 8x8 or an 8x7 type of contract for himself, looking at around $8 million per year or so. But with Skinner now signing for $9 million, that's certainly going to change the market a little bit. Now, I know that obviously Skinner's a winger, Duchene's a center, which we know centers typically make more. Duchene doesn't score as much as Skinner does, but he's much more productive overall. So certainly could push his numbers up a little bit to be 9.5 or 10. You do see some contracts signed, which kind of change the whole marketplace a little bit and kind of push everybody else up a little bit at times, and that very well might have an impact on some other players here coming up. But it was quite surprising to hear the Coyotes linked to Duchene. I would certainly like to hear your thoughts and comments on what you think, if that's even remotely possible, and do you see Duchene having interest in going there if they pursue him hardcore like Darren Dreger has led on here. The other team I want to discuss here today is the Buffalo Sabres. Now, apparently they mentioned as well in this segment that the Sabres are another team that have kicked tires on Minnesota Wild forward Jason Zucker. Now, as we know, Zucker's already been really close to being traded twice, once to Calgary, once to Pittsburgh, and I do still think it's a possibility that both of those deals could be revisited. I'll be shocked if he's not traded somewheres, and I do see him being the type of player that a lot of teams certainly would have interest in. He can score, he's got some good experience, he's got a pretty reasonable contract, I think, especially if he can be, a solid 25 goal man, and really overall he's got a lot of speed and skill too, so I think he fits with a lot of clubs. Now, the Sabres, I can see here having some interest. They did say after Skinner's been signed that the Sabres are far from done. They really would like to add a number 2 center and another top 6 winger. So obviously if Jason Zucker could be made available via trade here, that certainly could satisfy that other top 6 winger they're looking for. And even though it wasn't mentioned in that segment, Pierre LeBrun also mentioned in an article written that he wrote for The Athletic that he believed that the Sabres also might have been kicking tires on Kyle Turris and seen a possible fit there as well. But because of Kyle Turris' performance last year and the contract that comes with it, that they would have to sweeten that deal a little bit, but that he's a player as well that the Sabres likely would have some interest in. So bringing in guys like Turris and Zucker certainly would add some pretty good experience and add a lot more depth to that top 6 forward group. It would go a long ways to really helping the Sabres take things forward here to have more success from last year. So I guess we'll see here, but apparently the Sabres are expected to be aggressive this summer. That's something I would not find surprising, as I do think GM Jason Botterill probably is feeling some pressure now after being on the job for a few years to get things done. So let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. Do you think Corey Perry and Dion Phaneuf will find themselves with new uniforms next year? Do you think Matt Duchene could actually go to Arizona? Do you see the Sabres being aggressive? Let me know what you think and we'll continue the conversation in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, subscribe for more content just like this one, and give the video a thumbs up as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.